Welcome to Write Now Workshop Podcast, where you can write a book and change the world. I'm your host, Kitty Bucholtz, and this is episode 41, a Kindle World First Timer, an interview with author Kristi Phillips, coming to you on Thursday, March 22nd, 2018. For the last 2 weeks, we've been doing a little series here on what it's like to write in one of Amazon's Kindle Worlds. This week's author, Kristi Phillips, just published her first book in Deborah Holland's Montana Sky series, and she talks about what it's like to write in a Kindle World compared to just writing on your own. Kristi is an interesting and fun person to get to know, and we had a really good time talking about the different kinds of history and how she got started writing in Deborah's world, which pretty much came about from a conversation about how Kristi writes gold rush stories. Now, they haven't been published yet, but now that she's writing in Deborah's Kindle World, and Deborah's excited about the whole gold rush thing and the miniseries that Kristi's writing, I think that we can see more of Kristi's gold rush stories coming to us in the future. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome. Today's guest is Kristi Phillips. Kristi is a New York Times bestselling author. In her imagination, which is where she spends the majority of her time, thinking up storylines and navigating her way through hypothetical situations. Kristi is a busy mother of 3, and when she's not chasing kids around or investigating the latest mystery stain on the new carpet, she can be found blogging at theprimamama.com, writing sketch comedy or performing improv at various venues in Hollywood. Very rarely, though, can she be found doing any actual housework. Welcome, Kristi.
Hi, thanks for having me, Kitty.
I'm so glad you're here. I have to say, reading your bio, I'm like, that's so awesome. It just makes you sound like very fun and not flighty, but a person who just runs around and does all the things that she's really interested in.
Yeah, I do. I keep busy, and much to my husband's chagrin, housework is the last thing to get done. Why clean? Well, you have fun.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm very lucky. My husband and I both decided when we got married in college that everybody keeps saying life is so short and we don't know how we're going to make it, 80 years. It just seems like too long a period of time when you're only 22. But we're like, but if life really is too short, then let's go have fun and worry about housework later. And, now at many years past 22, we haven't really gotten back into that whole housework thing that adults are supposed to do. Oh, well.
I don't miss it. It's unnecessary.
Oh, well, there you go. I've gotten advice from a pro. Oh, so I am so excited to talk to you because when I was talking to Deborah Holland, and then she was mentioning some of the people who write in her Kindle World series, I was like, wait a minute, I know a lot of these people, and I don't think that I really realized it. I knew that you had a book coming out and you said it was in the series. And I knew Linda Carol Brad had a couple of books that she wrote in the series and some other people, but it wasn't, they were like one conversation here and one there. And I hadn't really put them all together. So I'm so excited that Deborah kind of jointly, we had this idea, wait, what if we just interview a whole bunch of people and get all these different perspectives on it?
I think that's a great idea.
And the fun thing about talking to you is, if I have this right, you've just published your first Kindle Worlds book, and it's the first one that, of course, then if it's the first one, it's the first one you've written in Deborah's series. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about, start wherever you want. How did you and Deborah have the conversation? Or if it's earlier than that, how did you decide that you wanted to do this? Or if you want to start with, this is what I started writing, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Deborah and I know each other from RWA, as you know, and I write, all of my published books so far have been contemporary, but I have several gold rush stories that are not published yet. I'm fascinated with the gold rush. I love it. I grew up in the Motherlode area.
Wow.
And so when Deborah heard that, she said, wait a minute, you write gold rush? I said, yes. She says, would you be interested in writing in my Kindle World? And I said, oh, I don't know anything about Montana. And she's very encouraging. She said, oh, but the time period, and I think, you'd be able to fit right in. And so I was familiar with her Kindle World. I enjoy it. It's very sweet. And so I read a few more of her books and said, yeah, you know what? this will be fun. I'll give it a try. So I actually have a funny story about how my story came about. It's my friends say, oh, it's synchronicity. I'm a huge researcher. I can't just make up a story and go, oh, that's probably accurate. I have to research absolutely everything. And Deborah's more, she's like, I don't want anybody to know specifically where my town is. It's just kind of, I keep it vague. And it was driving me nuts. I was like, I need to know, how far are you from Butte and how far, you know?
Yeah.
So I was doing researching on the different minerals and ores that would be mined in that area. And I came across this fascinating man, and they called him the Copper King of Butte, Montana. And I said, oh, wow, this guy sounds amazing. He was an immigrant. He came from nothing. He had a little bit of Irish luck and hard work, and he became a multi-millionaire. And the people loved him. He was very good to his workers.
Wow.
And so I said, I'm going to base my hero on this guy. And but I couldn't use names because Deborah doesn't want, names. So I immediately forgot his name. I just remembered his title. And then in my personal life, we had a big, tumultuous, exciting thing happen. And that is my son was cast in a TV series that filmed, of all places, in Utah and Montana.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, well, I guess I'm going to know what the weather's like in Montana. Right. So we were on location filming, and we were in this small town called Hamilton. And one day we had weekends off, and one weekend I saw a little sign that said Celtic Festival at the Daly Mansion. And I said, oh, let's go check that out. And we went. My son's 9 years old. And we went, and we were not that impressed with the Celtic Festival. I mean, it was lovely, but we weren't that excited about it. But the mansion was incredible. And I said, let's tour the mansion. And my son's like, oh, I mean, I've dragged my children to every historical building within a 100-mile radius. So he humored me, and he agreed. And we took the whole tour. It's amazing. It's 25,000 square feet of
wow.
historical, restored, beautiful mansion. And we made it up to the attic, and my son was he just had it. He's like, how do these people have so much money?
Yeah.
The house is so big. And there were a lot of pictures and stuff in the attic and a timeline. And the docent said, oh, well, Marcus Daly was the Copper King of Butte, Montana. And I said, wait, what? And they said,
oh.
I said, Butte is like 5 days horse ride away. What is this house doing here? And they said, oh, this is his summer home.
Oh my gosh.
I got chills. I was standing in the attic of the house of the man I had based my hero on. And so I started fangirling. This docent was like, wow, I've never had anybody this excited to be in the attic before. And I proceeded to dive into researching the family and the house and the area. And I changed my story a little bit, and I incorporated a lot of it into my story. And my hero, and my book is called Mind to Love. I should probably
yeah
let you know that. And my hero is named Marcus Danley, and he's the son of Marcus Danley the First. So it's, I play with it a little bit. And so it was a very interesting, exciting coincidence, I guess.
Wow. That is so, I would have chills too. I would be talking a mile a minute about everything that I knew about it and asking what she knew about it and promising my son all the ice cream he could eat if he would just let me stay a little longer.
He was very patient.
Oh, you have good kids. Wow. So you must have been feeling, like the whole synchronicity of it all coming together when you hadn't finished the book so you could incorporate anything that you learned.
Oh, I basically changed the whole book. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And I decided to make a series out of it. So my series within Deborah's Kindle World is called Copper Creek. And so it's a little town, it's one town over. It's between Morgan's Crossing and Sweetwater Springs. So
okay, because Morgan's Crossing, I'm trying to remember from when we talked to Deborah, that's where the mining town is?
That's the mining town.
Okay. And so yours is an additional, I mean, I know that you know way more about it than me, but what I remember is during all of these different mineral rush periods, there would be several little communities popping up wherever somebody found some more. Is that right?
Absolutely. They would call them boom towns, and they were mostly canvas tents. But if you got a really good load going, then, not brick and mortar, but wooden houses and churches and stuff would be built. And if the town had a reason to thrive aside from minerals, then it would stick around, and you have the cities and towns we have today. But I'm reading a book right now called Ghost Towns of California, and it's fascinating because there are so many because of the gold rush and the boom and all that. Yeah. So there's a lot of very interesting ghost towns that there was a rush. They came, they established a community. And then they went away.
Oh man, that is so cool. I can't remember. I know it was when I was driving north of LA, maybe on the 5, maybe the 14, but I thought there was a place where there's like just a small little sign that's like the name of a town that's a ghost town, and you would just never even realize that it was there because you can't see anything from the highway. And I always thought someday I should pull off on that exit and see what's there.
I recommend it, definitely.
So what do these towns, we're getting a little bit off track about Kindle Worlds. You know what? I'll save that conversation for when I'm talking to you later, because I just want to know, what do these towns look like, and how do you get your family to go with you?
A lot of bribery.
There you go. That's what I should probably do. Okay, so this is really interesting. Linda Carroll Brad also started writing a little mini series. When you started the idea, when you said, sure, Deborah, I'll give it a try, were you thinking to yourself, I should probably try to think of a miniseries idea, or did that idea come to tell us? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to try it out just to see. I'm a control freak, and anytime you are under contract with somebody else, you give up control of your work. And so that's been an adjustment for me being in the Kindle world, because I like checking my numbers, seeing if promotions are working. And you can't do that when you're in a Kindle world, because you only see your sales at the end of the following month. So I was like, let's just try this out. I'll see how I like it, see if I get any, extra readers that, hadn't been exposed to me before. Yeah. And it has been rewarding. It has been fun. And when I was working on my story, this idea came to me where, if I did this would lend itself to a series. Let's do this. So my characters are building a school for, it's essentially a finishing school, but rather than for elite rich girls, it's for frontier wives. So, yeah. Yes. There was this sounds
so interesting. I'm sorry, I'm talking over you. Say that again, because I'm sure I just spoke over you, but it sounds so interesting.
Oh, I'm glad you think so. It's just there were not many women, and they needed more women. So in order to get the women to come out, to go west, So
is this a real idea?
I haven't researched it. It very well could be. I've never heard of a finishing school for frontier wives. It was just kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps situation. Yeah. But we'll see how it plays out in my series.
I love it. It sounds so fun. It actually reminds me a little bit of Tessa Dare has a series that I can't remember the exact name, but it's something about Spinster Cove.
Spindle Cove.
Spindle Cove. Yeah. You read it?
Of course. I love Tessa Dare. I've read everything she's written.
Yeah. I think that I might have too. In fact, I think that there's a couple books I might have accidentally bought twice. And then, these women, young women, go to this little area because, there's been a scandal or something's happened, or they can't, they're too shy to go out and
they're wallflowers.
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like you could have like that kind of crazy fun with your finishing school.
I'm excited about it, to play in that world and see where I go with it. I'm currently working on the second book, and I'm actually meeting with Deborah on Thursday. We're going to get together and talk about how we can smush our stories together and make sure we're not stepping on any toes. So that's going to be fun.
That does sound fun. Oh my gosh. All right. I have 1,000 questions, but I have to go back to, You said something really interesting. And again, part of the reason why I wanted to interview all of you, well, it's the reason I interview everybody, is so that everybody listening has more information they didn't have before. I have to say, I had it in my head that even though I understood that you had a contract with Amazon, that you weren't self-publishing, it's basically a traditional publishing contract, though it's nice to hear. I think Deborah said that they have a 10-year period. It's not a lifetime period or anything. But I had it in my head that it would still be the same as you being able to log into KDP and check all your numbers every single day. But what you're saying is it's traditional, and so you can't.
I had that in my head as well. I've published with KDP many times, and it's funny, as I was trying to upload my manuscript, I kept running into roadblocks because I guess I didn't read the fine print. Every problem I had was clearly listed in the frequently asked. It was like, don't do this. And I was like, why isn't it uploading? And because I had pictures and I had, like chapter headings and stuff. So it being so well versed in KDP, I thought, oh, no problem. I know how to do this. And really, there are not many different rules, but there's just little tweaks and little differences that came as a surprise to me. But it all worked out. So
yeah.
And all my pretty chapter headings I can save for the paperback copy.
That's true. So when you make this contract with Amazon, is it for the ebook and the print book?
That I'm still a little bit confused about. Luella was telling me that I still need to talk to Lou about it more because she's definitely more well-versed on it than I am. But yeah. I have not made it into a paperback yet. I know they have rights for audio and they have rights for ebook. But because I wasn't planning to do a paperback right away, I glossed over that.
Right. I'll read it later.
But I know Lou has all of hers out in paperback. They're beautiful. And so she would be the one to ask. She's the one I intend to ask.
Excellent. I'm hoping to get her on the show as well. So I'll add that to my list of questions for her. So what are your feelings about, so you were, and this is a question, even though I'm phrasing it like a statement. As I understand it, you were self-publishing. This is your first traditional publishing contract. Is that right?
Basically, I was traditionally published through a small Australian press about 7 or 8 years ago. It was a while ago. But I didn't love it. It was really, again, I'm a control freak, so it was very frustrating. And we didn't have the same vision for my story, and we amicably separated.
Parted ways. Yeah.
So I love self-publishing. I love the control. I love being my own boss and telling the stories that I want to tell. So
yeah, I have to say I'm totally there with you. That seems to be the song of most self-published writers that I know. But on the other hand, you had to decide what the pros and cons were to having a contract that you don't have as much control. It's a 35% royalty because you have to split it with the Kindle World owner, splitting the 70% that Amazon usually gives. Mm-hmm. Amazon gets to tell you things that you would normally make up your mind about. So when you were trying to decide, and basically this is kind of for the sake of the listeners, how do you develop a pros and cons list to decide whether or not this might be possibly a good choice for you?
Well, I was more concerned with having control over the story and the cover and things like that, the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So those were all in the pros, because Amazon lets you, as long as you follow the rules of the world. Each Kindle World has its own rules. So, and they run the gamut. There's paranormal worlds, and there's sweet historical worlds, and there's almost erotic worlds and those type of things. And so as long as you stick within the rules of the world you're writing in, and you have, a professionally edited manuscript, Amazon pretty much just gives you the go ahead. You don't have to, they won't nitpick your manuscript. And so that was nice, because the control freak in me enjoyed that aspect of it. Yeah. And so it didn't feel as much of like a harness as like being traditionally published, where they decide everything. They decide structure, they decide cover, they decide they get to do all the fun stuff.
Yeah. And they give you notes on your story that you need to either make them happy about your changes or, yeah.
Exactly. So, so that was definitely a pro, is the how much freedom you are allowed within writing within a Kindle World, and the splitting of the 35%. That's fine. Because people are being introduced to my story that wouldn't have normally found me another way, perhaps.
Right.
So, so it's hopefully opening up my readership. And once my Gold Rush series is up and running, maybe there'll be some crossover. If they enjoyed Copper Creek and all the excitement that happens there, maybe they will come to Columbia and see what's going on 50 years earlier.
Right. And Deborah was saying that one of the other pros to it, that obviously splitting the royalty on the one hand is a con, but one of the pros is that particularly for the people in her private Facebook group who have contacted her personally and are getting feedback, from her to keep their stories like really central to the tone and feel and everything that she tried to develop. She was saying that one of the pros is that you get so many people cross-promoting your book because you're doing all this cross-promoting of all these other books that it actually probably is increasing people's not only sales, but like you say, visibility and that sort of thing. So,
yes, I love writing romance. And I love what a supportive, amazing group of authors we have. There's no competition. There's no cutthroat piracy type of things like there are in other industries and in other genres, really. Because we know we have voracious readers and there's enough love for everyone.
That's right.
And the cross promotions, they're fun. They're helpful and they're fun. And you get to see it be introduced to stories that maybe you wouldn't have known about. So,
right. I have to say, I never really thought about historical romance or Western romance as being something that I would read. But every single time I read the first chapter of one of Deborah's books, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to buy this because I think I just like the people so much that it makes me not really care that it's in an area that normally I don't care that much about, but I just like the people so much. And then your idea, I love how much it sounds like you, and let me just ask you a question because now I'm so interested in your books, but so do your books have some humor in them? Because the story idea seems like it does.
I like to think so. I have a cameo by Mark Twain. He comes because he was actually in the area. I fudged it by a year. He was in the exact town that this takes. Well, it's a fictional town, but
right.
He was in the exact town. They left my fictional town and went to a real town, and he was in that town 1 year earlier. So I just fudged it. I was like, he's going to be here now. And he has an interaction because he knew Marcus Daly, the man I based my hero on. And they had a bitter rivalry between Marcus Daly and a man named Clark. And it was the stuff movies are made of. It was incredible. They were bitter enemies. And Clark's brother married Marcus Daly's sister-in-law. And so you can imagine how awkward Thanksgiving must have been for them. Right. So I have Mark Twain. We call him Sam, and he comes and he's there, and I quote him. He's got a few quotes like how he loves cats, and I put those in, and he had quotes about how much he hated Clark, and so I threw those in there too.
Oh my gosh! And this is in book one.
This is in the first book,
and this is out, right?
It's out. It came out December.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to have to go, find my Kindle and do another download and not necessarily mention it to my husband about buying another book. Oh, what fun. Okay, so what other questions do we want to ask you? Is there anything that you've noticed that has changed the way you write, maybe the order that you write books, how many books you're going to try to write a year, anything that's changed with the books that are already out, like anything that you've noticed because of this new kind of direction? Well,
I'm kind of in a unique position because I write really steamy like my previously published stuff is extremely steamy contemporary. So it's nothing like sweet historical romances.
Yeah.
But I have had a few bumps in my backlog, and I just wonder,
Right.
what those readers must think when they get my steamy contemporary stuff after having read my sweet historical. So I try and warn my readers, because I'm doing it wrong. I write so many different styles because I just love them all. So I've got a Kristi book in the works. I've got the historical ones. I've got the steamy contemporary. I have the humorous, not so steamy contemporary. So I'm just kind of a mess, and readers just kind of have to trust me or come along for the ride. And if they like, I have a clear voice. So if you like my voice, the voice is the same across all the different styles that I write, but the content is very different. So, we'll see. I've introduced people to different styles because, different subgenres of romance, because normally, they've only read, erotica or, new adult. And then they see that I've put something else out, and they'll be like, well, I'll see what that's about. And they end up liking it. So now they're introduced to a whole new world of romance stories that they never would have tried, but because I can't pin myself down.
I do the same thing, and some of it actually happens within the same series, a little bit genre mashing, like my superhero series. It's superheroes, first of all. So there you go. I think Captain America is the coolest guy ever, except for now I'm like, okay, I love Captain America because I've known him so long, but now I love the Black Panthers so much. I mean, I already kind of started loving him in Civil War, Captain America Civil War, but man, after this new movie, I'm just like, I not only love him, sorry, but this actually is related. I love all of his immediate group of friends and family, because they all seem like genuinely good, decent people who are trying to, live a good, decent, honorable life. And I love that, which is probably the reason why now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, oh, that probably is the reason why I do like a lot of these sweet historicals that I'm finding, either through Deborah or other, similar books, or even, books by other authors that aren't even necessarily related at all to Deborah's books. But because I really like, there's a certain kind of people that I really like. I like to read them. I don't mind if some bad things happen to them, as happens in fiction, because I know that they're going to figure out some way to, they're not going to screw over the guy next door just to, fix their problem. So
they have integrity.
Yes. I love it. And so, there's some books that I'm like, okay, I'm kind of skimming over the sex scene. I know how sex works. I'm not that interested in reading about it. But, if the books are full of interesting people doing interesting things, then, and I think that a lot of readers, possibly particularly romance readers, they'll read through a lot of subgenres because there are certain things that they like. Like I really like humor, and I like people of integrity, that sort of thing. And if it is in paranormal or, sweet Western or whatever, I'm still happy. So there probably is a lot of that going on, or about to start happening more so within all of your books. And
of course, you always get your happy ending.
Exactly.
The definition of a romance. You get that happy ending. So
It's very important, I think. Which is why I don't read Nicholas Sparks anymore. Sorry, Nick, if you're listening. You're a great writer. I can't read your books, though.
He doesn't write romance. People get confused about that. I say he's not a romance author.
No, that is so true.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'm about ready to go off on another tangent. Let's stick to the subject here, Kindle Worlds. So I guess the last question really is, let's say, so you're probably among some of the newest of the Montana skywriters, I would guess.
Yes.
Your book only came out like 3-ish months ago from the time of this recording. Okay.
She just
no, go ahead.
Had a release of a new batch, and I think there might be 1 or 2 newbies in that one. They came out this week, so check them out.
You know what? Actually, I think I got an email. I specifically read the email about Deborah's new book that came out, book 8. And of course, I downloaded the Kindle sample, and now I'm near the end of it. And I'm like, you're going to hit the buy button as soon as you get to the end of the sample. You should just buy it now. But you're right. I think I did see the email with other books coming out. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what do you think would be things that listeners might want to consider? Pros and cons or advice? What do you think?
Well, I was really lucky in actually knowing Deborah Holland, the creator of the world, and she has really done a wonderful job of making it easy for her authors to create in her world. She has a Bible, like a world Bible, and we all add to it, and we let you know new characters that we've created and where they live and what their job is, and we have a Facebook page that's dedicated to her Kindle World, and we can ask there. Everybody's very helpful. We can say, is there a doctor in this area at this year? Or who's the sheriff in this year? Because it spans decades, her world. So, and we have to know, like, was that person there then or not until later? So it's very helpful, the way she set it up to where we can all communicate with each other and cross-reference and make sure that we're not stumbling over each other. And so that is a blessing. And again, I've only written in Deborah's World. I don't know if other Kindle World owners do that. If not, they really should, because it really helps. And yeah, just if you are going to write in a Kindle World, you probably already know it very well, which is why you want to write in it. You're probably a passionate fan of it. But I recommend familiarizing yourself as much as possible with the world and the different stories, and even other Kindle World authors within it. So I'm familiar with Deborah's, but I'm also familiar with some of the other authors that have, written in her world. And we just kind of, it all works, and it's so much fun. I know I personally love reading stories and then saying, I know that character from that book. I get very excited. Same thing when TV does it. Like the TV stations will do a crossover show, like, ooh, these characters are on this show tonight. I love it. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. Definitely. I have to say that I was like, I have to be home on these 2 nights because the Flash is going to be on the Arrow, and then the Arrow is going to be on the Flash.
Exactly.
Oh man. Okay. So, I'm sure that there are a few cons. So without, I'm not asking you to, be disrespectful about, something that's working well for other people. But I do try to let people know that, for instance, self-publishing is not necessarily for every single person, because you have to be the kind of person who wants to do an awful lot of different things. You're hiring people mostly to do your editing and your book cover and stuff like that. But the fact is that you're the boss. You're the responsible person who has to make sure it all gets done. So are there things about working in a Kindle World where you're like, well, this is a con you need to keep in mind? Like, are you willing to, I don't know, I guess have a 10-year contract that you can't do anything else with this book until after the contract's over, no matter how well or badly it's doing or whatever? What are some things that people you think should consider?
Well, I think really, as I mentioned earlier, the only con for me personally is not being able to see my sales until the following month, because I'm just a micromanager. I'll say, okay, I put, a little ad out here. I want to see how it's doing, see if I got a bump or anything. And I can't do that. And so I feel like I'm flying blind. And another thing is you don't have control over when Amazon will put your book on sale, or when they run a promotion, or any of that. But that could also be a pro if you're too busy to worry about running a promotion for that, today or whatever. But you also, that being said, you also have to promote it yourself. So, but where was I going? Pros and cons. And as far as the 10-year contract, I went in knowing I'm writing the story for this, and just mentally I'm fine with that. I'm prepared for that. I'm not if it doesn't do well, I want to take it back and do something else with it. That's not my mindset. It was, I'm going to write for this Kindle World, and there it is, So I think if you just educate yourself on what you're getting into and mentally prepare yourself for the differences in what maybe you're used to doing, then, it's really, it's fine. And as a self-published author, you are your own CEO, and you have to keep a lot of those things in mind, like hiring out the jobs that you can't do yourself. Like nobody can edit themselves. You just don't see your own mistakes. And so, so things like that. I'm very fortunate. My sister-in-law is a designer, so she does my covers for me, and she's
nice.
Amazing. So I can't really, if you educate yourself and you know what you're getting into, then you can rate your own pros and cons based on what works for you, because everybody's different. Everybody's going to like one aspect as opposed to another one, and vice versa. So I've enjoyed writing in the Kindle world, and I'm excited to keep going and flesh out my little town of Copper Creek and play with some more characters. So
that's awesome. And as I understand it, you may have other characters visiting Copper Creek from other books.
They're welcome. The fire's on.
That's so cool. Kristi, this has been just great fun talking to you today.
Oh, there's my dog.
And there you go. He's like, and me, don't forget me.
I was here the whole time.
All right. Let him be famous for his 15 minutes. What's his name?
Tesla, after Nikola Tesla. I mean,
awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Hi, Tesla. Glad you're here. Thank you so much. So where can readers find you and your books? I'm sorry. I always say readers. Listeners. Sorry.
Listeners and readers can find me on Amazon. I actually have an audiobook out. Nothing like the Sweet Historical. It's my spiciest book by far. It's called Sudden Legacy, and it is on Audible. That was a fun experience. Have me back when you talk about Audible.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do it.
But I'm mostly on Amazon. You can find other information about me on my website, which is KristyPhillips.com with a K, Kristy. And
Phillips with 2 L's?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where you can get all the latest news on what I'm up to.
Awesome. Well, I'll put links in the show notes, and we'll also link to your, is it primamama.com blog?
Yes, that is my family blog. It's a very irreverent, comedic look at motherhood in the trenches. So
I love it. Well, you know what? Stuff like that ends up being other people, particularly I'm not a parent. So that sort of thing sometimes is how I get ideas for how do I have this character act? She's got this age of a child, and, like I don't know anybody anymore with that age of a child. So sometimes I pick up, information from blogs, and I'm like, yes. Okay. Right. That's how I should write it. So you never know. You could also be a resource for people like me.
Oh, well, we'll see. Let me know.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you spending the time with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.